All right, welcome everyone to the November 17th special meeting of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Citizen Oversight Committee. If anyone here is in the public, our apologies for a slight technical issue. I think we have that resolved and we can proceed. So I'm going to call this meeting to order and start with the roll call. Kingston Cole.
Present.
Larry Minikis.
Present.
Stephen Keese.
Present.
Lucy Dilworth.
Present.
Rebecca Suggs.
Present.
Pat Randolph.
Here.
Max Gray.
Here.
Carolyn Longstreet.
Here.
And
Here, here.
And myself, Larry Chu.
I was waiting for that, actually.
All right. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull from the agenda tonight or make any agenda adjustments?
No.
Okay, any members of the public would like any agenda adjustments?
I
And
don't see
looking,
anybody from the public on the list. Would
Nope.
they be on the list?
There's no one on the list.
yeah, it said we're in regular format, so the member of the public would just show up on the screen. I wasn't able to make this a webinar.
Okay,
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, not an issue.
I will not call for that since we can see who is on our call. Okay, this is normally the time for open public comments for anybody who would like to address the COC on a matter that is not on our agenda tonight, but within our jurisdiction. I see no members of the public, so we'll now move on to item number 5, which is the Executive Officer's Report. Take it away, Mark.
All right, good evening. And again, I'm sorry, apologize for the logistical trouble we had this evening. So our last meeting, we talked about the rain, what it means to fire service. And lately we've been having rain at healthy doses. So that's really good. It sounds like we have more rain coming later this week. So as long as we keep those showers coming in healthy amounts and healthy within healthy periods, it's looking good. You probably saw a recent article in the IJ that the Marin County Fire Department has really hit the go button with the TAM fire crew, getting a lot of work done. And so are a lot of the other agencies able to really start focusing on veg management now that they aren't running around to fire. So good news on that front. A group of people tasked to work on objectives and metrics we've gone through 4 meetings of those right now. And I'll be presenting this a little bit more to the board tomorrow as well. We have some good rough drafts of our objectives, and we're working hard on our metrics. And a little bit of the metrics might be a little bit finding our path. The metrics are proven to be elusive just because this is a new realm that people have really not created metrics for in the past. And so we're allowing us to learn and create the path with a little bit of guidance of where we think the metrics should be. But like I said, this is the whole MWPA for the last year and a half has been a learning experience. So we're just wrapping that up into that. Tomorrow at the board meeting, I'll be presenting an item about governance, and the bylaws and the JPA language were really silent to how president and vice president of the board gets elected. There is no, and so, there was no succession plan that says the vice president will become the president. There was no stipulation of how the election goes. So working with the executive committee, we made a recommendation for that, how that should go, and also adopted or looking to adopt a code of conduct for the board of directors. And then there'll be a presentation about the strategic ad hoc subcommittee that you'll be able to see tomorrow. And then something for you guys they're tentative dates for now, but something for you guys to pencil into your calendar is that we're looking to schedule and this is going to be a busy meeting week, but looking to schedule the finance committee, advisory technical committee, and the operations committee the week of December 13th, which is also the same week as the COC meeting and the board of directors. So it'll be a very busy week, but there's a lot of important items that we need to work on. As I've mentioned before, I've been holding off on the finance committee meeting until we get the audit back. And I just finally had to give up. There's too much work that we need to do with the finance committee. So we're scheduling that. And then speaking of the audit, I did get an update tonight that we are looking at the end of December for the audit. So just for your guys' information. I saw a lot of you participating in the prescribed fire panel yesterday. I was really pleased with the way it went. The work that was behind the scenes to research what panelists that we should bring on, I think paid off. And I thought the content was great. I was very happy with how Maria handled the facilitation, and she had done a lot of the work behind the scenes to craft those questions, and then worked with each of the panelists to shape those questions in a better way. And then we had a dry run last week that helped put those questions in order. So that flow that you saw was because of the work that Maria had put into that. So kudos to Maria for how well she did yesterday. And I'll wrap up with that we're halfway through, or a little bit more than halfway through, our Citizens Oversight Committee recruitment. We do have applications that are coming in. We had an article or an ad in IJ on Sunday, and then the Point Raised Light should be this week's or next week's Point Raised Light for the full week. And then a lot of our member agencies have been helping us spread the word. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, yeah, Lucy.
Back to the metrics. Is one of the metrics per an expenditure per acre? Would that be possibly one of the things that you would, for instance, how many acres treated, and then I guess it would. I'm looking at acreage, so would acreage be there as one of the metrics?
Potentially, but it would have to be acres based on their danger rating. And I'll use CAL FIRE and the U.S. Forest Service as an example of why I'm not a fan of strict acreage metrics. They have agreed to have 1 million acres of prescribed fire a year, 500,000 done by CAL FIRE, 500,000 by the U.S. Forest Service. And this is about a 2-year-old promise. And so then the push is pushed down. We want you to get acres. We want you to get acres. And so instead of getting quality acres, they're getting quantity acres. They'll go burn 35, 45,000 acres of grass, and it shows the totals. And so it really doesn't mean a lot to us. We could go out to West Marin and burn Black Mountain just west of Nicasio Valley Road or Nicasio Reservoir. There's not a lot of benefit to burning that. So if there's an acreage metric, it'll be acreage based on our parcel level survey or parcel level analysis of that. How many acres in the very high risk were treated? How many acres were in the high risk? How many acres in the moderate risk? And how changing. I think our best metric is going to change that very high risk to a high and a high to a moderate. And that'll be the type of metric that we're looking at.
You design an algorithm of some kind to work with this? I mean, you've got enough variables.
It would be the same algorithm that we used as far as the algorithm that was used in the CWPP for the parcel level risk assessment. That would be similar to what we would use for that.
Something's, I mean, you're going to have to measure it. I mean, it's just.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I know it's difficult.
Hey, Stephen.
I think one of the things I would like to see is some sort of crude, somewhat standard measure of a fire road and a fire break, and maybe considering 100 feet wide or 50 feet off each side or something like that. And then a measure of just how many miles of fire road were cleared or maintained or whatever else. Because isn't that a pretty important component of having access to wildlands?
It is, but they have to be at the right place in the right time. You know, I've been around the county on a lot of the fire roads, and some of the fire roads I've been on, I'm just like going, this fire road just simply doesn't make sense. And it's not in the right place. There's no strategic value to this fire road, and fire roads are a portal for erosion. Fire roads are a portal for non-natives. So we want to make sure that any metric that we put forces us to work where it counts. And fuel breaks, what would be a fuel break in the grass is much different than what a fuel break would be in the timber. So it's hard to create those standard definitions of what a fuel break is. And it's my opinion right now that there's not even a standard definition of what success looks like with a fuel break.
Okay.
So it's one of those. I want our metrics to drive us to do the most effective work in the most important places.
I've got another question, not on metric. Go ahead, Lucy. You had your hand up.
And it was about the audit, so you go ahead and wait.
Okay. In the last meeting, Carolyn mentioned or asked a question about that private rancher landowner. I think it was near Sleepy Hollow or something that you said had been really diligent and good to work with. And I was wondering if you and ESP are planning on creating a guide or document, or just maybe making sure that the best practices document is available and gets in the hands of private landowners. For example, that if any of us know significant landowners, we could point them to it.
The ESPN, that document the ESP worked on that we're in a process of evaluating does talk about some of those types of best management practices for grazing, but not quite to the detail of what he was doing and other land managers may or property owners may do as far as rotating his herd to a different spot so that they don't overgraze. It was more for our prescriptive working that if we were going to bring in goat grazing for a particular area, that we don't have too steep of a slope, that we don't have special status plants, so on and so forth. So it's a little bit different target audience than what the ESP.
So you don't expect to provide much guidance for private landowners?
It's something we can explore in the future.
Okay, well, just a thought to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Lucy,
I think,
and then Larry.
It could be adapted for that. I think that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Could be modified, maybe a little pamphlet or something online, or
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have reason to be talking to David Lewis, who's the farm advisor, and can talk to him a little bit about it. I have reason to be talking to him about fire stuff anyway, so I will put that bug in his ear.
Okay, anything else on this item? Okay, Lucy and then Larry.
Well,
I've been kind of waiting.
go ahead, Larry, if you were talking about that topic.
Well, actually, I'm going back to your topic, Lucy, because if we're trying to get a metric of what it costs per acre, and this is going back to Mark's remarks, I think Jordan Reeser was just asked this question recently, and he said, it depends. Some acreage is ready to burn and needs minimal involvement, and others needs lots of work before you can get on it, and then it depends on slope. And I mean, Mark can say it way better than I can, but that's what we were told, basically. So that if we had a metric, 1 acre, one batch of acres may be 6,000 per acre, and another may be 55 or 4,000, but it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to us unless we understood all the metrics involved in that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know what to say.
So my question, if that's okay, Larry.
Yes, go ahead.
So you're saying that the audit's going to come out at the end of December. To how firm is that?
as firm as what I asked I asked Alicia Schiffman. I said, "Hey, when is it coming?" She says, "End of December." So it's firmer than any other answer I've given you so far, Lucy.
Okay. I guess that it makes reasonable sense for us to plan then sort of February-ish would be the when we would be able to probably have gotten our work done. So I just wanted a kind of mental point to the calendar. Okay.
Mark, would you anticipate in future years it might be a little more quick? Is it because it's really the first year that maybe it takes, or do you anticipate the end of December will become sort of the norm?
I would imagine that it all has to do with, I mean, Larry mentioned this before, there's so many, there's just a finite number of auditors, and, all the public agencies going through the audit process. We're actually a fairly simple audit. So I don't know if it's, even though we're a new agency, that actually almost makes it easier to audit. So I think it's more about the queuing of the different agencies.
Yeah, I just joined the audit committee for the COC at TAM, and we're going to be working in December, January. It's not out of the ordinary, and this is an organization TAM's been around for 10 years, and it's just I'll be working on that with them. It's just an ordinary process, and you're probably right. I mean, the number of auditors that are available is finite, and we got there first. So
yeah, exactly.
So whose lawn do I need to go mow?
All right. Moving right along.
One of those things where, as you start to move up into the March, April timeframe, the audit has to be done.
Yeah.
So, anything that we can do to get in front of the queue, because a lot of times, I know that there are some agencies where you see their audit come out in May or June of the next year. And then at that point, if there's anything to look at or needs even corrective action, you're already done with the year.
Right.
So anything else on this item before we go to the next set of hands?
Rebecca's your hand up?
It is, but it's the next set. I have a new question.
Okay, so Rebecca and then Stephen.
So we've discussed audit. How about dashboard?
That is part of the objectives and metrics piece of it. We're tying the dashboard into that, and we're still working with our member agencies on the website for better accuracy and more frequent updates on our projects. But we're working with Polygon Media, who made our website, to create that dashboard for our metrics.
So then the information that we're going to need, at least on the work plans group, is I've been tying it with the dashboard. I think I'm going to untie that.
Probably a good idea.
And then we'll just continue on asking the questions that we've been asking of the people that we have contact with, and just see if we can get all the answers we need and forget waiting for the dashboard.
I think that would be a better route.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, Stephen.
Okay, so in somewhat in conjunction with the question about Measure A changes for renewal, and emphasis that apparently most people feel should be placed on wildfire prevention. That has to do mostly with the county open space lands. So my question is, based again on a question Carolyn asked and Mark, you answered last time, that wasn't clear to me. Will we be overlapping Measure A funds in terms of projects and things, and so we get to flip a coin and decide who's going to pay for it? Or is there, when Measure A funds and I guess MMWD funds and Golden Gate and Point Reyes and stuff, do they fund entirely all of the wildfire prevention efforts on their lands, and our Measure C funds are not involved? Or do our Measure C funds in some cases apply to their lands also?
It's the latter. We did, and it'll be interesting. Yeah, right. Let's talk pre-renewal of and rewrite of Measure A. And we've done an analysis, and we'll actually be bringing this analysis to the Finance Committee, Exec Committee, and the board, that Measure C funds can be spent on public lands. However, it cannot supplant work that would have already been done, right? And so using the National Park Service as an example, we have been proposing projects on national park lands that were not projects that the national park had envisioned conducting. They are still conducting projects within their lands with their own monies. And then we're working in conjunction with them for projects that we feel would be more valuable for the protection of our communities. And at times we are asking for them to put money towards that project, or perhaps provide services in kind. And by that, I mean, for the national park lands, they'll be performing the environmental compliance through NEPA, which ends up being a cost savings for us because we don't have to go pay someone to go through that environmental compliance. MMWD, again, we'll be partnering with them, and for projects that they already have planned, that are on their calendar, then our funding won't go towards that. It's projects that we would say, hey, this has a better benefit for our constituency, mostly like along the wildland urban interface. And so putting that same standard towards Marin County Parks and Open Space, there were a couple projects that we had proposed, and Marin County Parks and Open Space said, you know what, we already plan on using Measure A money for that project. So why don't you pull that project off your docket? And we are already planning on taking care of that. And we're like, okay, that's great. But we would like to do this project here. And they're like, okay, that's a good project. We're good with you guys doing that project. And then their contribution to that project was they did the environmental compliance for us, because their stance is, hey, it's our land. We would prefer to do the environmental compliance rather than you guys doing environmental compliance. So that means, again, it's a cost savings, less project costs for the MWPA, means that we could put more money towards the actual work. How that turns around if Measure A is refunded or reapproved with the different balance, I would be making the argument that, well, that means there will be more projects that Measure A and Marin County Parks and Open Space will be funding rather than Measure C, and allow us to shunt Measure C money to other areas. That would be my argument I'd make.
Okay. I mean, and I presume that you and others would be keeping a close eye on no double dipping.
Correct. And I won't say that there wouldn't be any Measure C money performing projects on Marin County Parks and Open Space lands, but I would imagine that either the number of dollars Measure C was funding on Marin County Parks and Open Space land would go down, or the amount of work would greatly increase on Marin County Parks and Open Space lands.
Okay. I had been telling people something different, but I appreciate the correction. And
well, I don't know if it's a correction, Stephen. It's going to be one of those ones that we're going to figure. It's like when the legislature passes a law and they make this law, then everyone who has to enact the law figures out what it actually means. So I think it's going to be a similar thing in this realm, as we're going to figure out what's the appropriate way to use those monies and where that it's for the most benefit.
I was getting ahead of myself then. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Mark? All right, we'll move on to item number 6, which is our consent agenda for tonight. What we have is just the minutes from the last meeting of October 27th. Would anyone like to pull that for additional discussion? Looks like Stephen. Yeah.
I have a question, Larry. If I see a typo in it, should I bring it up here or just simply mention it to Mark and he fixes it and that's it?
You can bring it up here since you've already raised it.
But if you do bring it up beforehand, then I'll usually mention, hey, Stephen got a typo here and I've made that change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Well, it's template is misspelled.
Template?
It's
Okay.
it's spelled there TEMPLET, and it's TEMPLATE. So
I'll do a find and replace.
it's in something to do with Lucy's comments.
Okay.
Okay, anything else for the minutes? No? All right. Just need a motion to approve as amended. And we got, looks like Kingston's hand went up, followed by Stephen.
That's right. Beat him to the punch.
Yeah, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes.
I'm abstaining because I couldn't find them.
You're okay. Note for the record that Carolyn is an abstention.
Got it.
Okay, item number 7, committee reports. The first part of that are the monitoring assignments. Before we get into the information I have from these meeting with the executive committee, does anyone else have anything they'd like to report on anything they're monitoring?
Just really briefly, the board spoke to the work plans that are being conducted and presented a bunch of them, and it's just really impressive to the amount of work that's being done. And if you go to the last agenda, there's links for each of them, and you can pull them up and see in great detail what's planned. And that's my report.
Okay, any questions for Larry? None, okay. Any other reports?
I attended the executive committee meeting, but I don't think I have anything that will be any different than what you will mention. So nothing additional to report.
Okay, well, if anything comes to mind, you can bring it up after, I make a general introduction on this. Okay, I'm going to split this into 2 parts. The first part is what actually went on during the meeting, and the second part will be some things that I'd like to ask the committee to think about in terms of our operating procedures. So last time the committee had said that the chair, me, would take a message and a proposal to the executive committee asking if our subcommittees can be on the agenda of their subcommittees and to be as part of the public comment. So the primary reason for that was to allow us to engage in that conversation so that clarifying questions can be raised during part of a discussion, as opposed to just having your standard 3 minutes of public comment, having other people comment, and then finding out that there's more or that additional dialogue is needed for clarification purposes. So in short, there was no decision made, and the board president, Bruce Goins, is going to leave that up to each of the subcommittee chairs to decide whether having the COC on the agenda is something that they want to do or not, as the case may be. So Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you captured that pretty well.
Okay, Max.
Yeah, just a question. Thanks, Larry, for the report and for providing the written report as well. Just a question on that. If the chair changes, if there's a new chair, does that mean that the chair, without consulting the committee, could make a change in this regard?
The chair would certainly have that discretion, but I think if we do see a rotation in the assignments that, possibly through staff or whoever the current chair of the COC is, can find out if, they would be allowing the COC to be part of that agenda, or if they will leave it as part of the public comment period.
And if I may be, and having an optimistic viewpoint, when we show that this works, then I think it would be unlikely that the future chairs would want to change that practice.
Okay, now some of the things, as you saw it in the report I gave you in advance, is to consider 4 things that I might have brought up in the past, but what it does is that the experience from the first time we have presented kind of contextualizes some of those items. you know, I'm not upset or anything like that, but what it does is that it creates a context for which I can come back and say to you, you know, would you be interested in considering this because, and fill in the blanks. I did not purposely ask for an action tonight because we want to be able to think about this, and an action frequently is a binary choice. And if there are changes that you want to make from, you know, any recommendations, then, you know, it can be modified. So, you know, we as a group, if we consider any of these things, may want to take it back to, you know, the bylaws committee or the committee that worked on the principle of operations, and then come back with a recommendation to, you know, the full committee. But, you know, one of the things, moving to the first point, is that, you know, the last time you had unanimously said that I would be the spokesperson for this committee. Now, we don't know how we all work. I know in terms of my style, when I work with meetings, I frequently and almost all the time like to be the last one to speak, or close to the very end, because it gives me the opportunity to hear what everybody is saying and then come back with, you know, anything that would provide that final clarification or to make, you know, the final point on that. One of the things, when we had already made a presentation, and that presentation said that there would be a spokesperson from the COC, then one of the things that I think, well, I can't say that any of the public comments made by people who are members of this committee did anything to reinforce our position, but it's quite possible that in the minds of some committee members that, you know, it might have come off in a negative way in terms of, let's just say, for this committee as a fledgling organization to engender, you know, trust and credibility with, you know, our board members and the people that we are going to be working with on a regular basis. So, you know, that was the reason for putting that in. I think as each subcommittee goes into their respective assignments, that you know, you can discuss amongst yourselves who's going to speak. You may decide that you all want to speak, but if you're not part of that committee, you know, I guess you should trust your teammates. You know, they're part. They have a message to present. We've given that authority to do so, and you know, that will be their role. Part and parcel to that is, you know, whether a COC member should be making a comment as a private citizen. You know, I first want to be able to recognize that, you know, you have First Amendment rights, but whenever you do speak as a private citizen, even if you preface that in advance, when you wear multiple hats, the people who are listening very seldom are able to divorce themselves from one and the other. You are wearing all your hats in that totality. So when you speak as a private citizen, it also does two things if you are one of the dissenting members of a vote that was taken by this committee, is that you have accepted as part of this role, hopefully, that if you use my definition of consensus, it's that you have accepted the decision of the majority, and although you disagree, you're willing to support it. So I think in terms of how we define ourselves as an organization, you know, the question for you to think about is whether we want to be more of a, don't want to say it in a negative way, but, you know, we're working together as a team. And if there's, you know, our dissent is already on the record. So then at that point, is it necessary to then bring it up to another level? Maybe you may, you know, if you feel that there is either a rational reason to do so, or if there is something from a fiduciary standpoint you feel has been not taken care of. But by and large, the other way that the public could view that is that we're not in sync. So that's just something to think about. It's not to squelch a dissenting opinion, but it's how we look in terms of how we present ourselves to the public. Part of it is representation, but do we really represent a constituency? Because you do hear people making their own comments, even in a public setting where they are in a dissenting position. The but there is that for us, do we want to appear political to some degree, even if it may not be a political decision? One has to look at this organization and look at one meeting and say, okay, they came to a majority and this is what they were going to do. This was the representative decision that was going to go before another body. And then, those same objections are raised at another level, so it doesn't appear like we're speaking as one voice. Okay, so moving on to the next item, do we want to make any disclosures when there is even a perception of a conflict of interest? This did not come up in that meeting, but it kind of made me think about how we used to have these operating principles in Larkspur, because these three things are the same things that we have. Usually conflict of interest from the Fair Political Practices Commission is viewed as a financial one. But if there is the perception of one, then what I'm suggesting is it's simply a matter of pointing it out and letting the rest of the group decide if there's enough of a conflict to ask for recusal. I really don't see anything that from our types of discussions that actually would trigger that. But from a matter of creating, let's just say, some transparency in terms of our principles of operations, that's what we're reviewing the rest of the board on. And, we might want to adopt something like that ourselves. As a member that was appointed by the Ross Valley, I don't see myself as a representative of the Ross Valley. It's just, for the five of us, it's about geographical dispersion and making sure that different parts of the county have been represented. To the other four people, they may have been appointed in their roles, say environmental taxpayer group, fire prevention group, things like that. But do you genuinely represent them? And that's the part, that you would have to decide, do you truly have a conflict on something? Now, I think most of us, as I get to know people more, I know that in my own personal decisions I've had to make, sometimes the things that might appear to be a conflict are things that I actually place a higher degree of scrutiny on. I coach baseball for a long time. I had to really make sure that, when my son was a starter, that the statistics were there to show that he was deserved of that position. And I even made him work harder. So, my kids, when they played, they had to be better than how they appeared, just because I didn't want that sense of a conflict. And, moving on to the last item, it's just about, how we go about wanting to present a message. So this is not about, the first three things I brought up, which are more about personal items, but now as a group, that whole thing made me think about how do we present information to these committees? Well, we're not experts in any of these topics, but what we have been asked to do is to look at things and with a critical eye, come back and ask questions. So I know even with our one experience here where, you know, we might have ruffled a feather or two by saying that we needed an investigation. You know, I think we just ought to keep things soft. If you use appreciative inquiry techniques and ask for clarifying questions, then it doesn't give the public the impression that we have actually found something wrong. You know, sometimes when a definitive statement is made rather than a question being asked, especially with an oversight committee, you know, for those who don't trust government, that's the first thing that occurs. And then you start to push people back on their heels and get on the defensive. And next thing you know, it starts to damage our ability to get legitimate information from those that, you know, we're trying to partner with. And the one thing that I didn't have on here that I'd just like to add, because we didn't have a chance to discuss it, you know, prior to the meeting, was how do we approach, you know, a committee chair when we have a question? And the general protocol with other things related to municipal is that it would go through the city manager. And I would think that anything that we do start with going to the executive officer, and then he could defer either because of a lack of knowledge or because of the, you know, the position to either the board president or the chair of that specific committee. So, you know, I am now going to do nothing other than to listen to what some of your reactions are to this. You know, I know that one of the things that I've asked these questions before, no, the committee did not want to go forward with this, but, you know, once I saw that there was a tangible example of why I had brought those things up before, which is why I'm reintroducing this to you. So, Mark, is there anything from your observations in the meeting you'd like to also include before we, you know, kick it back to the committee members?
Nothing to add. I'm just going to listen like you.
Okay. So, thank you. Yes, see Stephen's hand up first.
Larry's first. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I actually raised my little hand, so there's no confusion. It still didn't work.
Yeah.
No, Larry, I appreciate everything. You've clarified something for me, because I was writing Larry about this saying I'm really confused because, as you know, I wear an MCL hat. I wear the Fire Environmental Working Group, ESP, and biomass, along with COC. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've tended through this year to be one of the more active participants in these meetings where I'll make a comment or something, but none of the comments that I can think of in any way, shape, or form have been in any way controversial. And a lot of times it's just, hey, I really appreciate what you just explained. And it's a comment like that. You know, I'm showing appreciation for that. So I don't think that's, you know, I thought, is that going to be a problem if you know, or if I have a little piece of information offer about biomass or something? And I think I understand what you're saying is that when we're working as a group and we've made a decision, if we're pissed off at that decision, that stays within the group. We don't then go to the board and say, you know what, we don't agree with this. It's kind of theoretical because we haven't had anything yet, and I don't foresee us really having anything going in that direction. But then I began to think, where could this apply? And Kingston, I'm not picking you, I'm picking the position. All right. So in the taxpayer position, you know, a whole bunch of us may say, no, we really like this. And the taxpayer position, the taxpayer group's position is no, they don't. So there you have a problem, so that if Kingston wants to go into this meeting and say, look, I'm speaking on behalf of the taxpayer group, even though I'm a COC member, that's where I kind of see a potential conflict, even though, let me preface again, I doubt we're going to have these kind of issues come up during our tenure. It could theoretically, but I think a lot of it's theoretical. And the other thing I want to say is, you know, we can really paint a bright line. And the bright line is this: when we are speaking officially, we start our phrase with, I am speaking on behalf of the COC or the COC subcommittee of this. And this is what we would like to discuss or know from you. And then I think you've got a bright line for any board, knowing that this is coming from a different place. It's coming from the COC. And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess, Stephen, you were next.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your comments. I read them and what you said now, because I realize I've tended to approach everything that I've done related to this as an advocate, as somebody before MWPA even existed, advocating that it come into being. And the COC, being on the COC really precludes me from continuing that role. I do think it would be a little bit confusing. It could diminish not only my own standing, but also perhaps the whole COC. So I take your comments and wisdom to heart and appreciate it. And it will take a while for me to be very cognizant of my tendency to want to get in and be an advocate. And I'll need to hold off on that as long as I'm on the COC. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Carolyn, you had your hand up?
No, that was a thumbs up for what
Okay.
Stephen was saying.
Right. Kingston, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you, Larry, for doing a wonderful job. I mean, I really think it's excellent. I'm glad we're doing this. In answer to just taking the hypothetical that Larry Minikus offered, you know, if I disagree with a position as a taxpayer representative with a COC a decision, all right, I absolutely cannot say anything as far as I'm concerned to a board member or anywhere else. If I've got a real problem as a taxpayer representative, if I see it, I'll take it outside. Okay. I mean, if I go to a public forum, I speak then as a taxpayer representative. I assume that's all right. The other thing is, Larry brought it up, Larry Minikus, but I would just assume that that unless you have some official position to state that we not say anything as individuals in MWPA meetings or subcommittees or whatever. I mean, I don't think we should be cheerleaders. I don't think we should be, we shouldn't be, if we can't say something negative, then we shouldn't be allowed to say something positive. Let's just cut it off. The red line says, as your COC member, you only speak when you're permitted to by the COC, okay, and with the constraints on it. Everything else, keep to yourself, all right, or go talk to a board member on your own, but not in meetings, okay. This is my suggestion.
Mm-hmm. I don't see any hands up. Would anyone? Yeah, Lucy, and then Carolyn.
I think that all of your points have a lot of merit. It's taken some experience to actually go through the steps and see how these things work, to see the appropriateness of your suggestions. So I'm in favor of every one of them. I think that they would actually be useful to us and help us get our work done.
Yeah, keep in mind that this isn't just for us. We have the benefit of creating the operating framework for the next generation of COC members as well. Okay, Carolyn, and then Max.
Well, yes, I wanted to kind of respond to what Lucy was saying, and also Kingston. I mean, as you all know, I'm an active member of FERN, and we do advocate things to the MWPA. I wish I could get other people to step up and do this more often. Believe me, I'm working on it. But if I, clearly identify myself as speaking on behalf of Fern, I don't think there's a confusion. I don't see a conflict of interest. But I just want to throw that out there. Does anybody have a problem with that?
I think Larry Chu brought up a good point, is that even if we state a disclaimer at the very beginning and we speak strictly on behalf of whatever organization we might be affiliated with, there could be a bit of confusion on the part of the people who are listening to us that, oh, isn't that person on the COC? Oh, they got some inside information or something, or somehow or other they're pulling weight to promote their causes' interests. So for me, I think the thing is I guess it was Kingston, just keep my mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Max, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a question. I guess for Kingston, since Kingston, you had mentioned being on the audit committee for the COC for TAM, wondering if there's a similar sort of discussion there, or if there's a policy in place and what that might be. And same with Larry, if any of the JPAs you served on or with the city of Larkspur when you were on the council, if there were similar.
I will be glad to look for it. I'll talk with the executive director and see what they've got on that. Okay, it's a mature agency. I just came on last year, so but yeah, let me look into that for you, Max. Okay.
Yeah, because I would think that this isn't we're a new agency here, right?
Yeah. Right.
This is the first COC in the world, so. Other groups I'm sure have had similar sort of discussions, since in the transportation world there's advocates all over the map, right? So
Max, we had one interesting situation with a JPA where the board member was also the board member of a nonprofit that was looking to be funded by this agency. And throughout the discussion, he was using we, and it got to the point where I had to stop and ask, I've lost track of who you're representing, because it kind of shifted from the agency to the nonprofit, and it was bouncing back and forth. So that's one example of that situation, not necessarily going amok, but that what happens when you do wear two hats.
Yeah.
Rebecca, I see your hand up.
I was just going to say, thanks for putting it together. I do agree with everything that you're saying and your points, Larry. And I used to teach about how to do questioning and keeping it, appreciative and et cetera. And I had never heard of appreciative inquiry model. I just looked it up. It's quite good. I can certainly put my 2 hands and 2 feet behind it and just let you all know it's academic and well done. So yay, another new thing to look at. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Stephen?
Yeah, quick comment. Those of us who are on the grand jury with Rebecca are very familiar with this. Somebody mentions in something, and before 2 or 3 more sentences have been said by anybody, she's already researched it and she's got the answer. Rebecca, it's wonderful being around you.
Sorry.
Yes. Our personal Google.
That can't help it.
Yes.
And somebody bought me an iPad. Oh my God.
Okay. Larry, your hand is up.
Okay, I guess I got people started when I say sometimes I get up. Generally, when I get in front of a board my practice to thank the board and show appreciation for the information given. I may have said it wrong previously, but then I'll go to my point. And it may be a question, or it may be asking for clarification, but I don't just go there to say, thanks a lot, that was really great. Unless it's the end of the meeting and I'll just sort of pipe in, but that's about it. So I may have misspoken when I said that. Thank you.
Well, again, I'm going to come back and say, where do you draw the line? And I mean, I realize you're just being nice about it, but it just pops into your head. I don't know.
No, but, I guess what you're saying is if I'm speaking, I'll speak on behalf of biomass or ESP or MCL, and I'll make it clear. That's it. I mean, if that's what you're asking for, I'll do that. I mean, I've still got First Amendment rights. You can't be on a COC unless you're speaking conflict of interest. But I just can't see any situation coming up where there's going to be any conflicts of interest. Personally.
Yeah, when you look at recusal rules, you just can't go on the other side of the dais and sit in the audience, because there is this, I guess the psychological aspects of still being in the room can have an influence on the decision makers. Right. You know, I'm not saying that in terms of pointing at you or anything. I'm just saying that, you know, when to address Kingston's question about, well, where do you draw the line? You know, it's that's kind of like an open part of this discussion. You know, it's like, what do we feel comfortable with? What do we think would work best for us?
Right. And it's understandable if you're trying to influence a board. But if you're not trying to influence the board and you're making a comment or asking a question, I'll have an issue with that, particularly being the environmental representative. Though I agree with you, I look at everything. I don't sit here as an environmentalist, quote unquote. I'm looking at, I'm a community, I'm part of the community. So.
Yeah, Mark, you had something you want to mention?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that when I look at the screen, I see people, if not every one of you, just about every one of you that had your fingers and your fingerprints on the development of the MWPA. And you have tremendous ownership in the MWPA, and you all want to see it succeed, because that's going to make us all safer within our communities. And sometimes, and you really want to get behind and advocate and say, yes, this is the work that we want to do. But sometimes being the way that you guys can help the MWPA succeed is to be true oversight. And because I'm sure you've all heard it say, well, that's just a watered down COC that just rubber stamps everything they do. And your biggest ability to make the MWPA succeed is, in my opinion, very well being that oversight and holding us accountable, so that the taxpayers can see that we don't have a rubber stamp COC, that we have a true COC. And sometimes that might mean, and Larry, you know, you are so proud of the MWPA. I'm just using you as an example, Larry, but you're so proud of what the MWPA has done. You like to come up and say, this is great. But sometimes it might be more on holding us accountable side of it, of the shop.
Stephen, did your hand go up again? I couldn't tell.
No, I'm sorry. I was just.
I think our reports are going to be pretty balanced. At least that's the way it seems in the subcommittee I'm on. Hopefully others agree.
Yes.
Yeah, Pat, I kind of saw a little movement there.
I just said, because I'm a slow thinker. You know, tomorrow I will know what it is that I really wanted to say, but I think broadening ever so slightly into the content of that discussion at that meeting, there is a very fine line between oversight and advising. And that's where we all have the tendency to, I guess it's we want people to know where they're going wrong before it's something after the fact saying, you know, did you really messed up here? And yet at the same time, that advisory role is the board's role, is the operations committee role. So I just personally find it very hard finding where that fine line is between being proactive and still being objective oversight. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
I'll leap in and say I think the answer to that question is we are asking questions, we're not giving answers. And I think, Larry, your comment in the paperwork that you sent ahead of time, it says we're not making declarations, we're asking questions. I think that can be the biggest hallmark that we leave behind as the beginning of the COC is that's how we do the oversight, is sitting back and watching and saying, oh, what's that for? Why are we going there? How did you do this? Why? Not wagging our fingers, but, you know, pointing them upwards and saying, what?
Well, one of the ways to avoid getting into the advisory of crossing that line is, you know, we have questions, and if our questions can be sustained, that there may be a certain outcome that we want, then that's what we ask for. You know, we're going to leave it to them to solve the problem. But, you know, like, for example, we had discussed the timing of the audit this year. You know, the outcome is we want it sooner. So that would be up to Mark and working with the finance committee to figure out a means of achieving that if they feel that that item is important to help with, you know, either their credibility or to have better financial oversight.
I'm blaming it on TAM.
Yeah, right.
It's COVID. It's a supply chain and labor thing, right?
Yeah, right.
And is it a conflict of interest if they hire Larry Chu to do the audit?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not an auditor anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, Lucy.
So I just want to make sure that I understand this. Are you saying, are we talking about our conduct in meetings, or are we talking about the content of our report? Because I was envisioning, and I think we had talked about the idea of making a recommendation such as, let's say, theoretically, that the work plan start earlier if possible so that we would have an opportunity to read and understand what was going on. I mean, that kind of level of recommendation. It's not a policy one, it's a sort of process one. And I don't know that that's going to be our recommendation, but in that sense, that was what I was envisioning possibly being part of our report. So are you saying that that's not questioning enough? Is that what you were thinking?
Oh, well, I was just thinking in terms of, you know, just trying to provide a little bit of clarification between being in an advisory role and being in an oversight role.
Uh-huh.
Because ultimately, in an oversight role, we're here to play defense for the organization.
Mm.
So I would, you know, the way I kind of view it is that I'm looking at it in terms of, you know, like I said, outcomes. Mm-hmm. But then I don't think it's up to us to decide how they get there, because we've basically identified, you know, something that we think will benefit the public as well as benefit the organization. And using this example again, we want to see that the audit can be done sooner so that if there are any problems, we can address them sooner.
So is that making a recommendation?
Yeah, so you know, the outcome could be the recommendation.
Okay.
But the method in terms of the how, you know, we would make the recommendation on the what. I think we leave it to staff and the board to deal with the how.
Oh yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
And that's how I kind of see the two.
Mm.
The oversight part is the what, and the advisory part is the how.
Okay.
Does that sound right, Mark?
Yep, I agree.
Okay. I don't want to drag this out. If nobody has anything they'd like to add, you know, I'm just going to open it up and see what people think are next steps if they want to incorporate some of these changes into our principles of operations. I don't think these are bylaws things. You know, do we want to have that group go back and review it and make a recommendation, or, you know, do you just want to leave it to Lucy and myself to go through, insert them in the original document, and then come back and propose it to you?
What a great idea.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sounds fine.
Good.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. So,
We know how to pass the buck here.
yeah. So, you know, we're at that point. We're approaching December. And, you know, December will be my last meeting as the chair. And, you know, Lucy's got to hit the ground running in January. So
I feel like you just became chair.
it goes by fast.
Yesterday.
6 months goes by fast. That's why we try to have calls from time to time and, you know, maybe exchange some emails here and there so that, you know, whatever I'm getting questions on, she knows exactly what's going on. You know, there'll be no issues of continuity in January.
Well, there'll be 3 new people on the committee. That'll be, you know, quite a pretty big change.
3 new people?
No, Carolyn.
Well, only if I get fired.
Yeah. Only we vote them
I'm
out.
not following you.
Larry out of chair, not off the coal committee.
He's serving his 1 year, but he still can be voted for 3 more years.
Oh, Larry can?
Yes.
Oh, well, I guess we all can, but
All could, yeah.
yes, only if we run.
Yeah, I reapplied. So that's public
If we
knowledge.
apply, yeah.
So if you'd like to have another 3 years, it's just that simple form. Fill it in and.
I think he's already done it, right?
Yeah, I've done mine.
I've done mine.
Okay.
Oh, you're applying for another 3? Oh, wow.
So just
I
you,
hope you're
Carolyn?
doing it. I guess not. I guess so. Oh, so it's not going to be that big of a change. I thought it was 3 turning over.
No.
And just a reminder, the 3 new people wouldn't be till January.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for your comments and taking the time to review this item.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.
And let's see, got to go back to my agenda, and it sees that there are audit related ad hoc subcommittee is the next report. You know, at this point, the finance committee has nothing to add. Does anyone want to report out on either the work plan, transparency, or the annual reporting subcommittees?
Transparency didn't meet, but you know, we're just watching the website right now and thinking of other issues. You know, the dashboard is a big thing right now. So,
okay.
If I can ask a question, Kingston, I thought you guys were going to email me a list of some findings that you had, maybe some dead links. I got the one that Lucy brought up to my attention, but was there going to be a document you're going to email me?
no, I don't believe so, but
okay,
I'll go back and check. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things I can mention for the rest of the group is that, you know, Rebecca, Kingston, Lucy, and myself as the appointed spokespeople for their respective subcommittees. We did get together, had a really good discussion about where there's overlap and where people may need information from each other, and kind of got a little more clarity on things that we want to review. So that was a good discussion, and thank you to the three of you for participating in that.
Yep.
Okay, any other reports from the subcommittees? Yes, Rebecca.
So our subcommittee has met, and we're still continuing to review the work plans from 2020. And we were thinking that we needed to wait for the dashboard. And as I clarified, no, we're not going to wait for the dashboard now. So and all of us were already talking with people from each of our respective geographic areas. Larry, I'm going to follow up with you to see if we need to do anything about Central. So I don't think there's anything new yet to report, but we will be making a different push now to get stuff done if we can in December.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to be writing up something about the West Marin region that can just be hopefully used, or you can edit it or whatever, depending on how you end up doing the format. But I intend to have this wrapped up by the end of the year.
Good.
Okay, yeah, and I'll try and gather some data also on, I don't know, Mark, what do they call where I represent? Is it Ross Valley or is it Central Marin?
Central Marin.
Central Marin is the technical name.
Yeah.
You finally figured that out? Jesus.
Well, you know, everything about Larkspur always falls into a Ross Valley or District 2 or something like that. And Central Marin is usually referred to for San Rafael.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
And if you look at a map, even to make it more confusing, Nicosio's in the dead center of Marin. So
is that so?
That's right.
Yeah.
But we don't consider, there's no people there. That's
How about that reservoir coming back, speaking of, but anyway, that's another topic.
So I have a question. Where's the line between West Marin and Central Marin? Is it at Oak Knolls or what? Forest?
I thought it was White's Hill.
White's Hill.
The eastern,
makes sense.
the bottom on the eastern, it's the bottom of the eastern side of White's Hill.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Fairfax in. Okay.
Well, Fairfax is in Central Marin.
Yeah.
You know,
does
where
not include Fairfax.
Where Baywood Canyon goes, the entrance to Baywood Canyon. Technically, Baywood Canyon is in West Marin. Everything east of that, and we hit the easy button when we made those zones. We went with the old paramedic response zones, and so that's why I know exactly where that line is, having worked on the ambulance that knew if it was on that side of the driveway I did go or if I didn't go.
And people may be slightly surprised that San Rafael area includes more than just San Rafael Fire Department and the city of San Rafael, because Marinwood Community Service District is a part of it. And the county has some areas within that San Rafael geographic area.
CSA 19 and CSA 13.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was some unincorporated. Oh, I guess it was Mill Valley that has unincorporated. I didn't realize that.
That's Homestead Valleys and is the unincorporated part. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, San Rafael has several unincorporated areas. It's funny how you can go in and out of the city of San Rafael.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the rest of the committee members, we go to item number 8. Does anyone have any informational items they'd like to share with the rest of the group?
Only that the board meeting is tomorrow at 3.
And I did confirm that the Zoom address for all of our publications matches the actual Zoom address for the meeting. And I did find out what yours truly did wrong on this agenda.
Okay.
I
We
cut and
forgive
pasted.
you.
I cut and pasted the wrong Zoom meeting. We're actually on our Grizzly Corps morning check-in.
Jesus.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have a Grizzly Corps check-in, and it was a symptom of too many things on my calendar, and I grabbed the wrong address.
Okay, Mark.
That's what I thought I had done.
Not to worry.
I grabbed the wrong address.
If that's the worst that, happens, we're in good shape.
Yeah.
Vanished from the Thanksgiving table. Okay.
All right.
So Mark,
I'll make one other announcement. If anyone's interested, the Marin County Parks Commission meets tomorrow, Thursday at 2. So maybe I have an overlap. That's why I know.
Yeah, and one of the things they're addressing is the Measure A.
That's right. That's why it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is an important meeting, actually.
Yeah, every group in Marin is dealing with that, seems like.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they better behave themselves.
Big
That's all I
deal.
can tell you.
The thing is that in many cases, they've just now sort of realized, oh, this is coming up. And there's a lot of money there.
Yeah.
Yeah, about time.
Yes.
How does it compare to Measure C money? Measure A?
Close to the same.
Okay.
But it's but Measure A is a 1/4 cent sales tax,
Yes.
as opposed to Measure B, which is property tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, fundamentally different funding mechanism.
Yeah, different bases, but the total is about the same.
Good to know.
Though I would say the sales tax, I would imagine, goes up and down with the economy, whereas people's properties do not.
Well, this
Go up and up and up.
Sales tax didn't go at TAM, which is all sales tax. The sales tax really didn't go down that far.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really quite amazing that people were still spending. They're spending money. They just spent it on Amazon, whatever. But to stores, but they stayed at it. It stayed fairly. It wasn't level, but didn't go down nearly as much as they thought it would.
Yeah.
Well, the sales taxes a different group of people too, because there are people who don't even live in Marin who end up paying the sales tax in Marin. So,
well, if you go up on Amazon, you pay tax that goes to Marin. So yeah.
But if you drive over here from Vallejo to do your shopping here, I don't know why you would, but
Okay.
Right.
Larry,
Yes,
a clarifying question for you or for Mark. If we're on the Grizzly Corps morning check-in, does that mean public didn't have access? And if so, do we need to do the minutes for last month again at next month's meeting?
No, because what I did is I moved you guys all over to the same link that was publicly noticed.
Okay. Cool, thanks. And then also just an announcement. Not sure if everyone had seen, but the county has posted, or rather, I think Southern Marin Fire District has posted, because they're the administrative agency overseeing the countywide coordinator role. Formerly, it was the CERT coordinator, and when Maggie Lang retired last year, someone was briefly hired in that position, and when they left, they reconfigured the role. So it's posted. The person would be in charge of CERT countywide, as well as Get Ready Marin, as well as NRG activities throughout the county. So even though it's posted in Southern Marin Fire District, the position's going to be working.
Okay.
So if anyone knows anyone, encourage them to apply.
She was great. Maggie was fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. She actually she lives in Mill Valley, so she's involved in all of the emergency preparedness stuff in town, whether it's the NRGs or CERT or other things. So.
Well, one thing we should talk about, which we brought up before, are future possible field trips. Mark, do you have any ideas for any in the future that might be of useful? And you don't have to answer now, but it's just
I'm trying to think of accessibility, especially if there's weather, and where we get the most bang for our buck for where we go.
Yeah.
You had
Let
gone
me
on.
put some thought to that.
You had gone on that MMWD one, yes, Mark?
Which several months ago, we went on one for the Lagunitas Rock Springs Fire Road down to Laurel Dell and then back up. And then, yeah, I'm just trying to think about where we have parking, where we, like the San Rafael Hill one worked pretty well because
that worked great.
Walk. Yeah. So I want to try to identify something where we had that type of
something like that. That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this. I'd encourage anyone to walk the backside of Lake Lagunitas, and they did about 35 acres back there and did quite a lot of treatment. It's really something to see, actually.
Impressive, yeah.
And that's actually fairly easy to get to, so maybe that could be it.
Just can't park there, but that's all right.
Oh, no, you can park.
You can pay.
Yeah.
No, we could get some.
There's already a group that's been trying to go there.
Phoenix. I was thinking of Phoenix. Like Lagunitas is easy. Yeah.
But we keep postponing. We got first it was because of the fire risk, and it was because of rain. So we haven't gone out there yet. But there is another group going on a tour with Marin Water.
Oh.
So Marin Water recruited me to go up and pull French broom last Thursday.
Cool.
And I cleared a grand total of maybe 1/10 of an acre. And I am still sore.
Yeah.
As long as the ground is wet, it's okay. Just keep pulling. Yeah.
I still had to use the little wrench.
Yeah, the brake. Yeah. Okay.
I love that. Really.
Yeah.
The sensation of pulling out the ground. It's great.
God, can we adjourn now?
I know.
Jesus.
I'm
cashing in my chips here.
It's when they make that pop. That's what I love.
Larry, save us from ourselves, please.
Yeah. Well, before we adjourn, does anyone want to have anything added to next month's agenda?
Just
maybe further. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Max.
I was just going to ask, just confirming we are meeting. I know, a number of groups and sometimes agencies don't meet in December. I'm happy to meet, but just wanted to ask.
Make a hint.
December 15th.
15th, yeah, right.
Is maybe we do talk just as an information item about future field trips on the next agenda. Mark will have a chance. I mean, it could be the springtime. It doesn't have to be during the winter. It's just something.
Yeah, okay.
And Mark, if it's not wheelchair accessible, we can just hire a couple of firemen.
Yeah.
I know a few.
Yeah.
Rebecca likes that.
Maybe we should have unrecorded before we started.
Yeah, probably. Not probably.
Maybe we can have the tech
holiday season
committee or the ops committee carrying the COC.
Yay.
Just saying they're nice guys.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Have a good turkey.
Kingston made a motion to adjourn, so
second.
Yes, I did.
Other comments? We can stop the recording, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too, Larry. Take care.